Hello out there in YouTube land. My name is Timothy Connolly. I'm joined by Richard Woods, and we're here for Gorshin's 11. Hi, Richard.
Hello, Timothy, and how are you this fine evening?
I am wonderful, thank you. And how's everything on the eastern coast?
It's good. We had some rain, but the weather's been pretty all right. Other than that giant smoke cloud coming down from Canada last week, that was fun.
Oh, yes. I don't think that was fun. I think you're
Dude,
poking my leg, aren't you? That wasn't
it,
very
it
much
it was
fun.
the weirdest thing I've ever seen. The sky was completely yellow. Like wherever you looked, it looked like a sepia photo from
I
like
saw photos of that.
1940.
Yeah.
Very weird, man. And it smelled like a campfire, like you were camping in the woods. It was very interesting. And then, the media tried to make it seem like the whole world was ending, and then 8 hours later it was over. So there we go. That's about usual.
All right. Well, good. I did see a storm system roll through Las Vegas here today. Interestingly enough, we got some rain, which is a little strange for the month of June
Wow.
for us. Yeah, we got some rain this afternoon, and supposedly it's a storm system that's going to keep rolling on through. And some of the meteorologists are predicting hailstones the size of tennis balls. Dun dun
Wow. So,
dun.
so they're going to bury resubmerge some of those bodies in Lake Mead now with the new rain.
Yeah, maybe they'll finally find Jimmy Hoffa. Who knows?
Maybe he got reburied with the 6 inches of rain. You never know. Now you never find him.
Reburied.
Yeah.
Ah, poor Jimmy.
Yeah.
So anyway, here we are, Gorshin's 11, episode
Yes, sir.
number 2. And I want to welcome everybody back, all of our fans. Good to see you all out there once again.
Good to see you guys.
Yes, very good to see you guys. We're going to start off today with our listener mail segment. We've got a whole bunch of letters rolling in. And that reminds me, if you want to send us some letters, you can send your emails to our program director, Sonny Calzone. Send your emails to sunnycalzone@gmail.com and just make sure that you put in the subject line Gorson's 11 listener mail. And then, of course, go
Yes,
ahead.
sir.
Send us your questions, your comments, your heckling, your jokes, whatever it might be. You can even send us your manifesto, although I don't know if we'll
Yes.
get around to reading the whole thing on an episode. But if you're a lucky listener, we will be choosing your email to read aloud on our show. And Richard,
Yes.
we've got
And your manifesto.
we've got two emails in that we're going to take a look at today. Now, the first one comes from our good friend in Arizona. This is Arizona Pete
Yeah.
from Peach Spring, Arizona. Hey, Pete.
Hey,
And
Pete, what do you got for us today?
Pete writes, how come nobody knows how old the Grand Canyon is? Um, Pete, that's a great
Wow.
question. I love that you're asking us how come nobody knows how old the Grand Canyon is, and that you're not asking Richard and myself how old the Grand Canyon is.
Yeah,
Because
you know what? That's a very deep question, but
yes, it
that's
is a deep
yeah,
question. That's
yeah.
correct. This is true. How
It's
come nobody
it's very
knows?
far
Well,
down a hole.
I couldn't even guess how old the Grand Canyon is. Richard, could you even guess?
Well, I mean, when the tectonic plates all split, 65 million years ago, whatever, and divided up all the continents from Pangea, shit cracked. It's as simple as that. So it's older than old. It's far older than the human race, far older than anything that we know of as modern. Probably 65 million years ago, somewhere the world was splitting into pieces, and it cracked it open. And I'm sure there was a lot of water in it at one time, like a giant river, but most of it got dried up in different parts. You never know.
You never do know. I did see some interesting facts on the internet regarding this. One fact I saw is that according to the U.S. Department of the Interior, it says that the Grand Canyon was carved over some 6 million years. That's how
Oh,
long it took to be carved.
oh,
And
to be carved. Yeah.
right now, furthermore, the National Park Service here in the U.S. reports that the oldest rocks exposed in the canyon are approximately 1,840 million years old.
Yeah. Yeah.
Those are only the oldest rocks that are exposed. Now,
Wow. Yeah.
the rock that goes down below the surface, I mean, that we can't see, I mean, geez, I
Yeah.
I couldn't even tell you. How are you supposed to measure that kind of time? I mean,
Well, that's true. I mean, if you think about it, right? I mean, however long the Earth has been here, that Earth underneath the ground has been here too. If you're going down, 150, 500, 10,000 miles, whatever, to the middle of the Earth, of course, that's been here since as long as the Earth has been.
I know. And furthermore, there's a website that's called geology.com. Now, we all know what geology is.
Yeah,
It's the study of rocks and earth and soil and all that.
sure.
Geology.com says that the Grand Canyon and the river had to have formed within the last 80 million years because this is when the sea was last present here.
Yeah.
So I guess no older really than the last 80 million years. Um, but uh, but then I guess, it doesn't explain the age of the oldest rocks exposed being 1,840 million years.
Yeah.
Big difference between 80 million and
Yeah.
1,840 million.
Well, that's true, Tim. If you give me $1,400, I'll give you 80 back, and you'll see the difference right there.
That's
So
true.
you can PayPal it to super awesome guy at gmail.com, and I'll send you back the 80 bucks like one of those scammer guys. Just
You're a
open.
sweetheart.
Yeah, yeah. I do all I can to hurt others.
Well, good. And I hope that we did all we can to answer Arizona Pete's letter.
Yes.
Thanks for
I
emailing
hope
us,
that
Pete.
helped you, Pete. See, in my guesstimation of 65 million years, I was not far off. So there you go.
Yeah, you were within 2 billion. Yeah,
Yeah. I was within 500 trillion and 5 minutes. So right in the middle of somewhere in there.
right. You are.
Yeah.
And very good. Well, moving on now, we have another
Yes.
letter here. This one comes from Colonel Alan Glenn of Edwards Air Force Base. Colonel, if a human nose can recognize more than 1 trillion different smells, can it also
Yeah.
recognize the smell of outer space? This is what
Ugh.
Colonel Alan Glenn of Edwards Air Force Base wants to know. Richard, what do you think?
Well, since I've never been in outer space, I
Never took a
suppose
whiff of outer space, huh?
no, I haven't gone. I was supposed to go up with Shatner, in that rocket,
I still
last
can't
year.
believe he did that.
Yep. The Shat and me was supposed to go into space, and then all of a sudden Bezos is like, hey, he's getting on free because he was Captain Kirk and you're just some dude and you don't have $100 million, so you can't go in my rocket to go 90 miles up into right over the atmosphere.
Right.
People forget that, it's like they went into space. It's true, it is space, but they went
Yes,
like only 95 miles above the earth. It wasn't
right.
like, if I drive to the end of Long Island, that's further than where I am right now. They went into space.
That's a good point. I know a lot of people get all worked up about, oh my God, William
But I
Shatner went
think
to
it
outer
was
space.
cool though, and I think it's cool for anybody to be able to look at the Earth from that high up, like on a giant pogo ride, one of those slingshot rides. So that's cool. But I guess it's difficult to be able to see if you can smell space because as soon as you take your space helmet off that has oxygen and atmosphere in it, there's nothing left for you to breathe, and then you would probably die very soon after that. I guess you'd have to ask somebody who's been in space. I've only been accused of being in outer space, never actually set foot in it, unfortunately.
Accused. And who accused you?
Oh, everybody accuses me. I get accused of many things. Like why is Tim Connolly such a wonderful man? And how do I get to know him better? And I said, I don't know. He's not a great guy to me, so I can't answer that
That's an accusation?
question. It is.
My goodness.
You've been accused of being a good guy. I know it's not true. That's why it's a horrible accusation.
Bold-faced lie.
Yeah. I've done all I can, Tim. It's all in your court now.
All right. Well, as far as smelling outer space, Colonel, um, I guess if your nose is gonna recognize the smell of outer space, I'd be shocked because humans do not exist in outer space. Humans cannot function in outer space, although that's not necessarily true. It's been estimated that a human can survive in the cold soak of space for a very brief time, maybe 10 seconds, um,
Yeah,
before sustaining any, irreversible harm to your physical self.
yes.
Um, maybe 10 seconds, depending on, if you're in tip-top health or not. Um, but I don't think anybody's going to be able to recognize what the smell of outer space would even be. What would the smell of outer space even be? Like you said, there's no atmosphere. So what would you be breathing? You'd just be
Yeah,
breathing vacuum.
right.
So I'm going to go out on a limb here, Colonel, and I'm going to say that outer space has no smell. And I
Yes,
dare you to prove me wrong.
that's right. Send somebody up there without a spacesuit, and then if they live, they can tell you all about it. That's my best advice. And I encourage someone to do it. Yes, I'm saying it right online. Go 95 miles into space and take your spacesuit off. You heard it here first. You can sue me later. Also, send that to sunnycalzone@hotmail.com for all of your suing, because that's my lawyer's address.
All righty then. It's
Yeah,
nice to know your lawyer is still using a Hotmail email address.
he does, man. He's old school. He's like Frank Gorshin, you know.
Hotmail is very 20th century. You know that now, right?
Is it? I thought it was 19th century.
No, don't be silly.
Yeah,
And
but there's time travel and all that. Like
let's
H.G. Wells, like maybe something else we're going to talk about soon in the show.
well, speaking of something else we're going to talk about soon on the show, I want to say, Colonel, thanks for writing in. Dismissed at ease, as you
Yes,
were.
among
And
others.
it's time now for topics from the tropics. And we've got
Okay.
some very
As we
interesting
know,
stuff
if
to
if you've
discuss here.
witnessed if you've witnessed the first episode, I must don my tropical shirt. So here it comes. Let me get my shirt on here.
I
All right.
confess I did
It only
witness the
happened.
first episode.
Yes, here it is. All right.
And a little bit more tropical of a
And
look
now
there for both of us. Look
I'm
at that shirt.
appearing in the tropics.
Excellent.
And there I am. It's
Welcome to
good
the
to be back
tropics.
here in Hawaii, Tim. It's a good
It
day.
is good to be back. And living in Las Vegas is kind of like living in Hawaii because they refer to Las Vegas as the ninth island.
Oh,
There's a lot of Hawaiian culture here. Did you know that gambling is illegal in Hawaii? So that a lot of them come here to gamble.
I did not know that.
Yeah, this is true. And a lot of the supermarkets and what have you around here, they cater to the Hawaiian folks. And it's cool to see a lot of that. I get along with a lot of them. I know a lot of them. They're great folks, and the food they enjoy is great. And but speaking of topics from the tropics,
Yes.
we've got some very interesting topics to go over in this episode. Now, the first big one is that 2023 is the 30th anniversary year of a major motion picture by the name of Tombstone.
Yes. Great film.
Tombstone. Great film. Great film, if not one of the greatest westerns of the past 50 years. I mean, I
Yeah,
try to
and
think
and
about
it is one of the best tellings of the gunfight at the OK Corral. There's been a lot of them made over the years, some good, some not so good.
yep,
But they had an all-star cast, obviously, in it. Kurt Russell, Val Kilmer, Bill Paxton. So many good ones in there in this film.
that's right. And let's not forget about Powers Booth as Curly Bill.
Yes,
And
Billy
of
Bill
course, you got
Burgess.
Michael Biehn as Johnny Ringo.
That's right.
So from coast to coast in this film, the casting was just absolutely brilliant, and everybody
Yeah,
loves to remember Val Kilmer's performance, of course, absolutely
as
unforgettable.
Doc. Yeah,
Yeah, I think the Doc Holliday character almost, I say almost, because Kurt Russell as Wyatt Earp, of course, got top billing, and nobody was gonna steal his thunder in that film. But ooh, Val Kilmer came so close to stealing Kurt Russell's thunder in that film. And
yeah. I mean, in the film, you got all the actors are still at the top of their game. They were all experienced. They all were big box office draws on their own. Many of them were leading men in their own films, and they all came together to do supporting roles. In an ensemble cast. It was fantastic. Nothing bad to say about it. I like a lot of the OK Corral stories. There's been a lot of good ones.
It is good ones. And in fact, that was 1993 when Tombstone came out in the theaters. The following year, 1994, another OK Corral movie came out.
Yeah.
Bang bang, one right after the one right after the next. And I didn't see it coming. And looking back on it now, it strikes me as strange that we had both of them so close together like that. I guess they
Yeah,
must have been
I
shooting
think,
at the
and
same
I don't
time.
know this for sure, but I mean, you'd probably think that two studios had the same idea at the same time and were rushing to get it out.
Oh,
Probably it was
right.
probably already in production when the other guys were in production, and somebody's got to win the race to the box office.
Right. No, that's true. Plus, I think it may have been the 100th anniversary year of the gunfight in real history. I
Yeah.
don't know what year that gunfight allegedly took place in real life. Do you know?
18
1893? If so, that would be too perfect because that would be,
no, it was earlier than that.
was it?
Uh,
Probably not too much earlier.
let's see. I can look it up. I'm just trying to do it from memory, but um I thought it was earlier than that. I thought it was in the 1880s. 1883, maybe. I think it was 1883.
Think so?
Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe I'm wrong.
Okay. Well, I'm going to take a quick look at Google and see what it tells me here because I'm curious as hell. I'm just going to use the keywords. Okay, corral.
It was 1881, October 26th.
It was.
The Earp brothers face off against the Clanton McClary gang in a legendary shootout at the OK Corral in Tombstone, Arizona.
I see it. I see it.
Now there's something that, and I'm an old movie buff. I love old films.
Uh-huh.
A lot of my friends and the people that know me well know I'm a real old movie buff. There was another really, really good story about the gunfight at the OK Corral called "The Hour of the Gun." Came out in 1967. It had James Garner, Jason Robards, and Robert Ryan.
Nice. I did not even know about this film.
It's a very, very good film. I mean, Jim is obviously, Jim Garner is known for Maverick and Jim Rockford and those tongue-in-cheek kind of roles. This is not that kind of Jim Garner role. He plays Wyatt Earp in the film, and he's very serious. And Jason Robards plays an extremely good Doc Holliday.
Very interesting. I'm going to see if I
And
can
and
find
Robert
it.
Ryan, who was as great as a bad guy, of course, plays Ike Clanton in the film.
And it's called Hour of the Gun, you said, right?
Hour of the Gun. Yeah,
All
very,
right.
very.
Well, thank you for
I
that,
think
Richard.
I,
I'm
I
glad to
know
look
you'll
up.
love it, Tim. I wouldn't recommend it on for everybody to see on the internet if I didn't think it was a great film. I've seen it many times and I own it, obviously.
Excellent. That's a very good
And I'm
recommendation.
looking right now on Rotten Tomatoes, it gets 88%. So people agree with me.
Hey, I agree with you. I don't know if that bumps it up to 89%, but I hope so.
I hope so too.
Well, let's see. Now, as far as the Wyatt Earp film of 1994 goes, the one with Kevin Costner and Gene Hackman and everybody,
Yeah.
here we get a film with a bit of a different tone, wouldn't you say? It certainly felt a lot different, and it certainly ended quite different with
Yeah.
with old Wyatt coming to the to New York City and on the boat with his wife, and they're seeing the Statue of Liberty for the first time, and
Yep.
there's some words at the end that lets you know he lived to be a ripe old age. He
He
never
did.
he never took one bullet in his life, never got shot with a bullet.
Yeah, it's crazy, right? When you think about all that what he did in the Wild West, and it was wild. And to think that he wasn't killed or even wounded is the odds are astronomical. Guys just got shot, over everything back in those days.
Yeah, this is true. I couldn't even begin to explain how lucky of a man he was. In other respects, he wasn't so lucky. I mean, he got to see one of his brothers die.
Yeah.
That's not the kind of luck that I would wish on anybody. Uh,
Well, yeah, I mean, but that's the kind of the road they took in life.
I know,
With the way that they lived, they knew there was a good chance that they were all going to probably be killed at one time or another. So it's
absolutely, absolutely, and with all
I'm
the
sure he I'm
outfits,
sure he understood that.
yeah, I'm sure he did too. They knew the risks. Law enforcement is a tough game. Even in 2023, it's hard to be a law enforcement officer.
Yeah,
Let alone a sheriff of an old Wild West, largely lawless
yeah.
community. Um, if I had a hat, I would tip it to Wyatt Earp. So I'm tipping my imaginary hat. If not the luckiest American who ever lived, he certainly deserves to be in the conversation. Wouldn't you agree?
100%. Yeah, definitely. It has to be a lot of luck involved in the area where he lived and the job that he had
Yeah.
to not be killed as so many others, good and bad guys all died, you know.
Well, so there you go out there, kids. If you get a chance to enjoy Tombstone and Wyatt Earp again sometime soon, go ahead, knock yourself out because this
Great
is
film. An
the
Hour of the Gun, another great
and Hour of the
storytelling
Gun.
film.
That's right. Don't forget. This is the 30th anniversary year of the Tombstone film. So
Yes.
celebrate and commemorate responsibly. Now then, our next big topic from the tropics, my brother, involves a certain film by the name of The League of Extraordinary Gentlemen. I think this one was from 2003. Yes, it
Yep.
was. So that makes this the 20th anniversary year of League of Extraordinary Gentlemen. Happy 20 years to you.
Yes. So you're
Yeah.
saying we're going from the penthouse to the outhouse. Is that what you're trying to tell me, Tim?
Well, sort of. I mean, there is some interesting news to share involving the League of Extraordinary Gentlemen. I don't know if you
Okay.
know, but the Hulu streaming service just recently, within the past year, announced that they are doing a remake of
Oh,
League of Extraordinary Gentlemen. And
okay.
so it looks like they're gonna do it right this time around, I guess. And when I say do it right, I mean a bit closer to the source material, um,
Yeah.
meaning
Yeah.
the great graphic literature written by Alan Moore. Now,
Well, I mean, Moore is great, obviously.
yeah,
He was,
he is,
fantastic.
and I think that some of the original source material of League of Extraordinary Gentlemen goes in some rather strange directions, but maybe now we're ready for it, whereas 20 years ago we weren't really ready for
Yeah,
what went on.
I think it just missed the mark. I've only seen it once. I never wanted to see it again. Some other films like Tombstone I've seen many times. Great film.
Yeah.
This I just saw once. It's stored somewhere in the back of my memory banks. But I mean, obviously Sean Connery, an incredibly good actor.
Oh,
He,
yep, I
he
knew you were
he's
going to bring
he's
up
the
Sean.
reason to watch the film. I mean, it's Connery et al. To me, basically. I mean, there's a couple of decent performances, but it's Connery et al. For me. There's a lot of people that I've never really cared for as much as actors. I don't know much about them before or after their work there. I followed up on them, but I mean, he's great. I mean, you can't go wrong with Sean Connery. He's
I
done so
agree.
many good films,
If
but this was
you
definitely one that I don't think he was very proud of either.
That's putting it lightly. Sean Connery in I believe it was 2006, he was famously cited as saying that he's finished with Hollywood because he's fed up with the idiots that are making films in Hollywood now.
Hmm.
Um, and furthermore, he almost got into a fist fight on set with the director of League of Extraordinary Gentlemen. It's amazing
That's
to me.
awesome.
At one point, the director said to Sean, "You want to throw a punch at me?" I mean, they were really getting into it, and Sean's response was, "Don't tempt me." And
Yeah,
the
yeah.
witnesses to all of this, and Sean just felt so disrespected. I can't blame him for getting so disillusioned. And but still, this is an actor who survived Highlander 2, and
Yeah.
an actor who survived wearing a silly Borat thong in Zardos. So
Ah, Zardoz.
to,
Yes,
to not
I
survive
actually,
this, I mean,
many people have not seen Zardoz, but I actually own that one also, believe it or not.
I do believe you. Why would
But
you
you may have
not
also
own that?
seen him in Time Bandits. He was great in that. People may have seen that movie.
That was a fun little thing for him. And I heard an interesting story about Sean's appearance in that film. And I don't know how true this is because it seemed like he was on different sets.
Right.
Um, I heard that he did all of his parts in one day for the
Yeah,
camera.
he may have. It was a
And I
small part.
guess, I guess, but he did so many things in that film. He was the fireman at the end. He
Yeah,
was
he was the
Agamemnon
guy that
fighting
had
the
the
Minotaur.
Minotaur's head in his hand, the
That's right.
gladiator guy.
That was a really interesting piece of casting by Terry Gilliam for that film. And I think it just so happened for Sean where he had a very short break in between other projects. So he only had a day or two
Yeah,
days at the most, whatever it was. But yeah, League of Extraordinary Gentlemen, I guess coming soon on Hulu. I haven't heard anything about it now.
yeah. Listen, I'm always willing to give things a try. Um, I guess we'll
Well,
just see how it comes out.
yeah, you gave League of Extraordinary Gentlemen a try.
I
So,
did.
and it didn't stick.
It
I
did not.
gave it a couple of tries, and I got pretty tired after the second try. Don't know if I'm going to try again. However, with this being its 20th anniversary year, who knows? Maybe I'll fire it up again on Netflix or wherever I can find it.
And
Um,
maybe I'll watch Tombstone again just because it was great.
you should watch Tombstone again, and then just for
And
fun,
even though I've
watch
seen it
Wyatt Earp.
at least 5 times.
You know what's interesting? By the way, just getting back to Wyatt Earp and Tombstone for a sec.
Yeah,
It seems to me that in Tombstone, you only really ever see one of Wyatt Earp's brothers. But in the Wyatt Earp film with Kevin Costner, you see two actors playing his brothers,
yeah,
and Morgan and Virgil. But you don't
right.
get Morgan and Virgil in Tombstone. And
That
I'm
is
guessing
interesting.
that was a decision made just for purposes of trying to keep the running time of the film under a certain length.
Well, maybe because in Wyatt Earp they hired every other big name actor to be in that one, and there was no room for him in this movie.
Oh yeah, that could be. I think those two films were in production at the same time.
Exactly. You got obviously um let's see who was some of the big names in that one in Wyatt Earp. We had
Wyatt Earp,
of course Kevin Costner. Let's
Sam
see.
Elliott,
Dennis Quaid, Gene Hackman, Mark
right,
Harmon, Michael Masden,
Michael
Bill
Madsen.
Pullman, Tom Sizemore, Jim
Yeah,
Caviezel. So there was nobody left to be in Tombstone because they were all making the other movie about Wyatt Earp.
nonsense. Michael Keaton was around.
But he was too busy not being Batman at that time.
Oh, actually, maybe he was still doing the Batman films at
No,
that
he
time.
he wanted to be doing Batman, but they were like, I think George Clooney was being Batman in those days.
Wait a minute, I just realized something. Who followed Michael Keaton as Batman?
Wasn't it George Clooney?
I thought it was Val Kilmer.
Was it Val Kilmer? They're really terrible movies, and I've not seen them or thought about them in quite some time. But
If
let's
it
see.
was Val Kilmer, I would just be surprised because wouldn't he have been busy making Tombstone right around that same time?
That's true too. Let's see.
Maybe I think it's far-fetched, but maybe Val Kilmer did all his Tombstone parts in one day, like Sean Connery style.
Yeah, it could be.
I doubt it though.
I don't. I think it was too big of a role for him to do two at the same time. I'm just trying to figure out. Let's see. Batman Returns with Keaton and Batman. No, you know what? Batman Forever was in 1995, and that did have Val Kilmer, but that was 95. So
Okay.
yeah, he would have been already done shooting Tombstone, and Batman Returns was 92 with Michael Keaton in it. So he'd have been just finishing up Batman and that coming out in 92 and then the following year. I guess I was probably a summer blockbuster. Let's see when it was released. I probably was. It was released on June 16th, 1992. Yes, that was a summer blockbuster in 92. And then the following year, Tombstone came out. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, that Batman film was a big film for Warner Brothers in that year.
And this was also a summer blockbuster. It came out June 20th. No, that's Wyatt Earp. This one, Tombstone was that was a Christmas Day film, December 25th, 1993.
Oh,
Ah,
nice. A Christmas present for everybody.
yes, we should have mentioned that earlier. Sorry, all our people out there watching. We should have actually said that it was released on Christmas Day.
Oh, it's all right. They forgive us, I'm sure. And it's fine. Nothing like circling back around to a previous topic from the tropics.
Yeah.
And well, speaking of topics from the tropics, I think that just about does it for this segment. So we're going to roll right
Okay.
on into our next segment today.
All right.
Next big segment today is, well, I think it's time for some questions and answers. Now,
Okay.
I've got 3 secret questions for Richard, and
Okay.
Richard is going to have 3 secret questions from me. And
Yes, and we're all going to have some not so secret answers anymore when we're answering these secret questions. So,
that's right. Now, here's where we ask for a little audience participation
okay.
because we're still just calling this segment questions and answers when we could be calling it something a bit groovier than that. So all of those out there watching on YouTube land or listening on Spotify land or wherever else you can catch this,
Yeah.
send us in your emails with suggestions for what we should call this question and answer segment. And if your suggestion is good enough, then we will, of course, use it and give you full credit and a full percentage and a full stipend and royalties and everything else that comes
Yes.
with it. Maybe even
And, and as Tim Easy would say, a lifetime supply of sailboat fuel.
oh, as Tim Easy would say,
He
I
was an old
remember that
friend of
guy.
mine from New York. You might know him.
I remember that guy. Yes,
He loved to use that. He used to love giving away prizes as a lifetime supply of sailboat fuel was one of his favorite prizes to give away.
it was. What a lovable maniac that guy was.
He was. He
Yeah,
was something.
he was something. All right, so here we go. Questions and answers. Now let's
Okay.
do this. We'll go back and forth. I'll hit you with my first secret question for you.
Okay. And then I'll give you my first one. Okay.
All right, and then right, but don't worry, I'm not going to give you any really difficult ones like I did last time, where I asked you to choose between Lee Marvin, etc. I'm
Yeah,
going to be.
that's unfair.
I know that, and
It's like me splitting the baby 3 ways. It's just not fair.
okay. Here we go. Of all of the members of the inner circle of the Beatles, and
Okay.
that means from Derek Taylor right on down to Mal Evans and everybody else,
Sure.
who was the coolest cat in the
The
Beatles
coolest of
inner circle? Now, I don't mean Derek
Beatles.
or Mal, I mean everybody. So you talk about Neil, you talk about George Martin, you talk about Brian Epstein, you talk about Billy Preston, you talk about everybody else who could have been considered a part of their inner circle. Who was the coolest?
It's one guy you didn't mention that came into my head first, Klaus Vormann.
Klaus Vormann. Ah,
Yeah.
yes. He
You
was
know,
the coolest.
I just picked up the Revolver deluxe box set on vinyl, the 5 record set.
How do you
And
like
of
it?
course, it's amazing. Yeah, they got the remix of the stereo version, 180-gram vinyl. It sounds great with Giles Martin producing it, George's son,
Very
and
nice.
they were able to use that new technology that Peter Jackson used in the Get Back films to separate the masters.
Oh, it
Because
must sound great then.
yeah, because well, the multi tracks that they had, they didn't just remaster it; they remixed it, but they only had 4-track recorders back in the old days, so they had to do a lot of bouncing of stuff on the same tracks. Now, with this new technology, they're able to isolate the vocals and the guitar and the drums and separate them and put them on their own tracks. So
Isn't
it
that
was really
amazing?
well done. Yeah, it was really really well done. And of course, I have a pretty good stereo system here in the house, so it sounds absolutely fantastic. And of course, I was thinking of Klaus, who did the artwork for Revolver.
That's right.
He was buddies with all the Beatles since the Hamburg days in the early '60s. Came
That's
up with
right.
them, and he played with most of them on and off throughout the '70s. He played on a lot of John's albums, played on
He
a
did.
lot of Ringo's albums, played with George. I don't know if he ever played on any of Paul's albums, but I know he did the rest of them. He played when John did the Plastic Ono Band Peace concert in Toronto in '69. He played bass with them, with Eric Clapton on guitar and Alan White on drums. So he's been with in and out of with all the Beatles for a long time, playing bass and drawing and doing great artwork. And I've seen a lot of interviews with him, and he seems like a really cool cat. So I will say Klaus Vormann.
I couldn't agree more. The man was a musician. The man was a visual artist. And who can forget that iconic album cover art for
Yeah,
Revolver?
yeah.
Just amazing. And so, excellent choice, my friend. Well, I'm sure you got a question for me, so bring it on.
Well, you see, there's many facets of my good friend Timothy Connolly. And depending on when you met him in his life, he has morphed into many different styles of a human being. And those that know you a long time will know what I'm talking about. Now,
Wait,
there
wait,
is
wait,
something.
wait, wait, wait a second. I'm sure there's a question in here somewhere.
The question is, later in Timothy's life, he started doing something different. And the question is, when did you start playing the ukulele and why?
Good question, and I know the answer to that. 2008 was the year. It was given to me as a goof by my bandmate, Russ Rogers. I should say our bandmate, Russ Rogers.
Russ, good guy.
Russ gave me a soprano, Carlo Robelli. There we go. He gave me a soprano, Carlo Robelli ukulele. Now, for those of you who don't know, Carlo Robelli is the sort of in-house brand for the Sam Ash music stores. And a fine instrument, don't get me wrong, nowhere near top of the line, but still quite serviceable. And me not knowing what I'm doing with it, really, just, hanging out with it, noodling around with it, finding my own way with it. Before I know it, I'm self-teaching myself. And Russ is showing me how to play certain chords and majors and minors and all that. And I start getting the hang of it, but the soprano ukulele was just too small for my large hands. So eventually I graduated to a concert size and then a tenor and then a baritone size. Baritone may as well be, the size of an acoustic guitar. But I own one of those and they're a lot of fun to play. The tenor is my favorite because it's a little smaller than a baritone and it's a nice size for my hands. Um, I'd never pick up the soprano anymore, but I still have it. And I'll always hang on to it because even though it was just meant to be a goof or a gift, I think it was a combination of two things. Inside the body of the soprano, Russ had put a sticker that you can still see if you look in through the hole beneath the strings. And the sticker says that it's for Tim Easy with respect, Russ Rogers, or something to that effect. It was personalized. So
Nice.
I can never get rid of that soprano.
No, and why
And
would you?
I would never even want to, but
It's where
um,
you started, so
that was
it's
the
good
start.
memory.
And now I get to say top of the world, Ma, but that was where I started.
That's right.
So I hope that answers your question, my brother.
It
Thank you.
does.
That's a cool question. 2008 seems like just yesterday sometimes, but of course I know that it wasn't. All right, cool. Question number 2 for you.
Okay.
This show is called Gorshin's 11, and
Yeah.
that reminds me I should probably deactivate my virtual background as it's time for Frank to make
There he
the
is.
appearance.
And he's
There he
on
is.
the phone.
Okay.
Is he our first caller?
No, he's not our first caller. That's actually a photograph from when he was in the Batman television series
Oh, you're
of
saying he's no
1960.
longer alive for the last 30 years. Oh, I'm sorry. I
No, I
must
didn't
have
say
misremembered.
that. I didn't even mean to imply that. And if that's what you inferred, then
Yes.
I'm
I
sorry, but
inferred,
that was the outcome.
implied, and imploded, I believe, all at the same time.
Well, my question for you is this: since the podcast is called Gorshin's 11, and we love
Yeah,
Frank Gorshin,
of
I
course.
I have to ask, what was your favorite television appearance of all time by Frank Gorshin that did not involve him wearing a Riddler costume? And
Well,
this could be one of his appearances at a roast, or maybe one of his appearances on a late night talk show, anything really.
I mean, he was in a lot of things. He also did voiceovers. He did voices for cartoons, and he did a lot of stuff over the
That
years.
counts too.
So many great things that he was doing.
I
Let's
dare
see.
you right now to look at Frank Gorshin's IMDb page. And I
Okay.
encourage all of you out there in YouTube land to do the same as we celebrate and commemorate our dear friend Frank Gorshin and have a look and see what might be Richard Woods' favorite non-Batman television show appearance by Frank Gorshin from over the years.
All right.
I
Now,
might not be ready for your answer, but I'm gonna
I
buckle my
think
seatbelt anyway.
I'm ready because I mean he brings that manic quality to just about every role he plays. so there's always a little bit going on with that. But I think he really does a great job of restraining some of that and more of an authoritative role in the Star Trek episode Let That Be Your Last Battlefield.
Yeah,
With when there's a half white and a half black guy, and one
right.
is white on the right and one is black on the left, the other one is
Yep.
black on the left, and you know the exact opposite. And Gorshin is the Commissioner Belli from the planet, and Lou Antonio plays Lokai, and his was the, I guess, quote unquote inferior race on the show, and he's been chasing him throughout the universe to try to arrest him for the high crimes of being an insurgent for a revolution. And then at the end of the episode, you realize that their planet has been dead for a long time since they left, and they've just been chasing each other through time and space in a never-ending war. And I just think he's incredible in the role. It's really a serious role for him. There's no joking around, no Riddler with silliness. It's a very very serious role and a very serious topic that Star Trek took on. You know, and I think of season 3, which is maligned by a lot of original Trek fans. I think it's one of the strongest episodes of season 3.
Excellent answer, bro. Excellent answer. Very good. Well, it's time now, I think, for your next question for me, perhaps.
Okay. I think this should be an interesting one for people that want to get to know Tim Connolly a little bit better. If you could only have one superpower, what would it be?
One superpower.
Yeah.
My one
Anything that would be make you
superpower.
extraordinary over an average human.
This is going to be a cliche, I know, but I'm going to have to go with super strength.
Okay.
Super strength. Now, not I wouldn't need to have Incredible Hulk level super strength,
Yeah.
but
You wouldn't want to get that angry.
no, I don't want to get that angry. But I can see how useful having super strength would be, and not just for my own day-to-day whatever, but also, helping folks out around the community. Hey,
Sure.
you need me to lift those 500 2x4s for you? No problem. You want me to put them down right over here? No problem. You
Hey, your
want me
car's
to lift
battery died. You want me to move it out of the driveway over your other car? There you go.
Yeah, you want me to lift up your car and put it into another parking space for you? I mean, how can I help you? I mean, look,
True.
I just want to be helpful, and of course, help myself when super strength is needed. And of course I would want super strength as a superpower. I mean, I'm an old man now, so it's important for me to make sure that my declining muscle tissue
Yeah.
is reinforced by this sudden superpower. And I'm glad that I get to choose a superpower. It's good that you give me that choice. So I'm gonna say super strength, and I hope you're okay with my choice.
I am. Okay, question 3 for me.
Are you ready for your third question?
I hope so.
Okay. What is the coolest YouTube video on YouTube right now, and why is it the Beatles 1985 Live Aid concert recreation video?
Oh, you know what? You just smacked me with one of those 2x4s you lifted for the old lady. I didn't even know anything like that existed at the moment. There was an AI
Oh,
thing that came
baby.
out. There's an AI 1985 Beatles concert.
It's not AI. It was very cleverly crafted by, well, you'll see. But anyway, that's your question, and I await your answer.
All right. Well, I have no idea because the Beatles were not an entity in 1985, and of course, John Winston Ono Lennon was killed in 1980. So,
That's right. And there had been a lot of speculation around the time of Live Aid in 1985 that had John not been murdered, there would have been a real good chance of a proper Beatles
it
reunion.
may have happened. I mean, you got to remember something. George, when the Beatles finally imploded, was really relieved that the band was done. And he never really wanted to get back together with any of the other guys under the helm of the Beatles name. I don't think he ever really wanted to. Even when they got back together, for the reunion for the anthology series,
Right.
um, he had made some bad investments, and he was really in debt at the time, even though he still had his big, the mansion in England and all the other stuff he had. He was a little hurting for money compared to Paul, of course, who was the richest musician in the world. So he made a lot of money that he needed to do even to get back together with the other two guys. So I don't know. I don't know if it ever would have happened, to be honest. Maybe it would have if John would have spearheaded it and got everybody in the same room one day and said, "Hey, we're not getting any younger. Let's get us all back together in the room," because it was Johnny and the Moondogs' original band. So if anybody was to put it back together, I think it would have John would have had to have been the catalyst to make it happen.
I have to agree. I mean, everybody knows it was John's band from the beginning, and
Right.
maybe it started to become a bit more of Paul's band towards the end, but
Well,
it
it did.
always
As,
still
as
John.
John, as, I feel as John started to lose interest in being in the Beatles in the last couple of years is when
Oh, of course. Of course.
I mean, Ringo has been quoted as saying, like Paul was the taskmaster. If he wasn't cracking the whip, we probably would have made 5 albums, because he was always the one saying, "Hey, lads, let's get in the studio." John and
Sure.
I are off in the bar having a couple of drinks, and then somebody's trying to ring us up and find us like, "Oh, no, it's him. It's him. We know it's him. He wants to get us in the studio and start working on a new album." So yeah, I
Here
mean,
he
and look what
comes.
Paul did. I mean, look at Paul's breadth of work since 1970. How many albums he's made? I mean, how many times he's gone time and time again and created music, and he still makes music. There's a new Beatles song they're going to be coming out with of the last track from the anthology that they decided not to use, one of John's demos from the 70s,
I heard.
and they're going to be extracting with that Peter Jackson technology John's vocals off of that demo, and then
So
they're going to have
amazing.
Ringo and Paul and somehow some I don't know if they what they did with George while he was still alive during those anthology sessions, but maybe they did lay something down with some of his guitar work on it. But I'm excited to hear what they can do with the song. It should be fun.
Yeah.
Paul said it's going to be the last Beatles thing he ever makes, so I'm pretty excited to hear it.
I'm glad that we're here to experience it when it happens.
Yeah, you ever read those things on the internet, those pictures that says, the human race has been around for X amount of years, and you happen to be on the planet at the same time as the Beatles. That's a pretty cool thing.
Yeah, it is a cool thing. And sometimes I think about that, even with John after the Beatles. I mean,
Yeah,
of course, we all lost John in 1980. I was 10 years old when we lost him, and so were you.
yeah,
We got to share this planet with John for 10 years. That's pretty
yeah.
cool.
And he lived on Long Island.
And that's right. He
He
was,
had his house in Cold Spring Harbor, and he had his apartment in Manhattan.
yeah, he loved the North Shore of the island.
Yeah, he certainly did.
And so did I. I mean, I lived up there for a time.
Yeah, you were
And
living in Glen Cove, I think, at the time, right?
I was Glen Cove, and I would sometimes go and see Cold Spring Harbor. Um, our former president of the United States, Teddy Roosevelt, had a house on Long Island at Sagamore Hill,
Sagamore Hill. Yeah,
and
in
that's in
Oyster Bay.
Oyster Bay.
Yeah.
And
Actually, I just brought my daughter there a couple of months ago for the first time to the
oh,
grounds. We
it's
went to
so
the
cool,
museum.
isn't it?
Yeah. Yeah,
Did you
she
get to
loves
walk
America.
along the trails and go back
We
towards
did.
Eel
Yep,
Creek?
yep. And we went to the museum where he had all of his belongings in, and the house was closed that day because he did reservations, unfortunately, and we did it on the spur of the moment. But
Uh-huh.
we were able to tour the grounds, freely, and we went to the museum part. So it was really great. I hadn't been there myself in 20 years, so it was a lot of fun to go back.
It's so cool. It's great that we have that piece of history that we can go back and experience. His grounds are not small by any means.
No, 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 definitely not.
And it would probably take you the better part of a day to explore it all and
For sure.
experience it all. And it's free. I mean, as far as the making reservations thing goes, I don't know if that's free. But
I don't know if it's free or not. I just know that I guess because it's the main house, the presidential house, that they I don't know what the reason is behind it, but you need to get in touch with them first to make some sort of a reservation to go into it. That's what the signs were saying, at least when I was there. But the rest of the grounds and the museum were just open to the public, and you can just do whatever you want. So that was cool.
that was
Yeah.
cool. Good stuff. I'm glad you got to go and
So
enjoy
I'll
that.
look into that Beatles thing for you, and maybe next episode I'll expound upon that. But I gave you some other Beatles knowledge and my own 2 cents about some Beatles stuff.
Very
Because
good.
as Tim knows, I like the Beatles a whole lot, and I know some cool stuff.
Yes, that's true. And this is stuff that should be shared with our listeners and viewers out there in YouTube land. Thanks again, everybody, for joining us here. This is episode 2 of
Yes.
Gorshin's 11. And well, we're getting ready to wrap up our Q&A segment, as I do believe Richard has one final
Yep.
question for me
And
today.
and this one should not be too long of a thought, I think, for Tim, because I'm thinking of three off the top of my head that you might choose. So this, my third and last question is lunch with anyone famous, living or dead. Who and why?
Lunch with anyone famous, living or dead, who and why?
Yeah.
The answer is
Preferably when they were alive and not a corpse sitting across from you.
lunch would be with Richard Woods, of course.
Oh, I
I
said
can't think of a
famous, my
finer
friend.
gentleman to enjoy a lunch with.
Well, we've already had lunch. How about someone you haven't had lunch with that's famous?
Are you're changing the question now? Okay. Someone not you, living or
Yes.
dead, who I could or who I would enjoy a lunch with if I could.
Someone famous that people in the crowd might know, that you might have loved to have met.
Wow. I have to say Brian Wilson. Brian Wilson. This is only the man who with severe hearing loss since childhood or teenage years was able to compose some of the most amazing harmonies and arrangements of music that I have ever experienced and that I still continue to experience today. I also would like to have lunch with Brian, not just because of his musicianship and all of his accomplishments, but I would love to just talk with him about life and not about music, not about any shared experiences. Just I would like to listen to him and see what he has to say and the way of wisdom that he could share with me, having been someone that's been through all that he's been through. It's just amazing to me, first of all, that Brian even outlived his 2 brothers.
Yeah,
That's
that's
amazing
for
to me,
sure.
especially since Brian was on that old downward spiral real quick.
Yeah,
Um, Now, it's also amazing to me that Brian is even still around today. Now, I get it; he's a lot older now, and it's not nearly as capable as he once was, but that's understandable. And there's a lot of miles on those tires. Man, I would love to hear some stories from him, even if it was just stories about parties he threw. I would love to hear that stuff. So there's my answer. It's Brian Wilson of the Beach Boys. It's got to be.
okay. Now he was one of the three. The other two I was thinking would have been Elvis Presley or John Lennon. Those would have
Oh, I
been
would
those are
love
the
to have
three.
lunch with Oak. Except maybe I'll have breakfast with Elvis and I'll have dinner with John, but I'll save lunch for Brian. How's that?
It sounds like they're all three winners from the mouth of Tim Connolly. Thank you, Tim.
Oh, you're all so very welcome. There's your answer. My love for Brian Wilson knows no bounds. And let's see, up next in today's big episode, it's time for cooking talk. Now, if we had a really cool, piece of music that we could play to announce the cooking talk
We're
episode, we could certainly do
cooking.
that. But
We're
we are no
talking.
frills
We're
here at
cooking
Washington.
and talking about cooking. There.
Hey, that's pretty good. That's even better than what we could have done musically, probably. So there's the improvised little jingle for the cooking talk segment. Today on Cooking Talk, it's important that we remind you all that both Richard and myself love to cook. We cook for
We do.
ourselves. Richard cooks for his family. I cook for my imaginary family. Well,
Yes.
that's not true. I
You
do
still
cook.
see Mama.
That's true. I cook for Mama sometimes. And today we're going to talk about Hungarian paprika
Ah, yes.
and its many uses. Now, um, there are all sorts of different kinds of paprika in the world.
There is.
And
Smoked paprika, there's Hungarian traditional, there's extra strong paprika, which is used
right,
for certain dishes.
I've had smoked and I don't mind it so much, although my preference is really just a straight up Hungarian paprika.
Yeah,
And I recently learned that paprika is such a big deal in the country of Hungary.
yeah.
The plant paprika is, I think, the national plant.
Yeah, I think
that
it's one of their
country,
biggest
or
exports. Yeah.
yeah, the national spice or whatever it is.
Yeah.
And I was wondering why so much paprika comes from Hungary. Now, it's one of those questions like why do so many of the world's almonds come from California when they, I guess, could just as easily come from any other place along that
True.
same I forget if it's latitude or longitude, whichever one the horizontal one is.
Yeah.
Along that same,
Which with the right climate, you're saying. Yeah.
right, sure. So it strikes me as so strange that much of what is considered to be the best paprika in the world comes from Hungary. Why Hungary of all places? I just don't know. But my favorite thing
Maybe
to
one
eat.
of our listeners can write in the comments in our show next week and give us the answer to that one. See if we
That's
bet.
true. So all of you geniuses out there, and all you spice whizzes, make sure you send us in your answer to that. If you know the answer to that one, please enlighten us. And you would also be enlightening our listeners and our viewers, and henceforth enlightening the universe.
So I
But
love paprika and I use it in many dishes. Sometimes I just use it to add color, even just the color to something because
sure.
it gives such a nice color to whatever sauce you're adding it to.
Yeah, it's got that rusty color that
Yeah,
we
so
don't
it
quite
really
get
does
from
well. So
anything
I use it
else.
in buffalo wing sauce. I'll throw some in there for
Nice.
color and a little bit of flavor. If you make deviled eggs, I don't know if you've ever made deviled eggs from homemade. I use my mom's old recipe and I sprinkled it with paprika on top and three capers on each egg. So there's a little bit of red dust, and you're only on the yellow, and you clean it all off the white, and it only should be on the yellow. And then you put three capers into the whipped yellow of the egg, and there's your paprika. But my favorite dish, another one of my mom's favorite dishes, who was originally from Europe, as you know, she would make goulash. So yes, paprika goes in
Mm.
goulash, and I use Mama's goulash recipe, and it is the thing I use. I've used paprika most of my life making goulash, so that's my favorite. Yeah, for sure.
Do you ever find yourself using paprika like with red meats?
Yeah, sometimes if I'm making a rub, like a spice rub, I've used it. If
Okay.
I'm using it for a spice rub for ribs, or if I'm like a pulled pork, to put a spice rub, paprika is usually in that. Some cayenne pepper, paprika, brown sugar, salt, granulated rock salt, coarse pepper. I like to make all my own rubs. I don't usually buy the stuff in the supermarket. I like to make because I have all the ingredients of the individual spices in the house, so I like to usually make all my own from scratch.
Yeah, just do it. I mean, you might as well. And I think you've just gone ahead and made all of our listeners and viewers a little hungry there with all of that. I know you
Well, some
certainly
of them
made
have
me a
had
little
my
hungry.
goulash, so they know it's good.
Yeah, well, this is good stuff. Now, I have yet to use paprika, Hungarian or smoked or anything, with any red meats. And but I'm very tempted to try it with beef ribs. You mentioned ribs earlier, and
Well, and goulash, of course, comes is beef. It's beef goulash. It's like a gravy. It's like a soup gravy kind of thing,
well, that's
and
true
it goes
too.
over
Yeah,
noodles or potatoes, usually over egg noodles. But yeah, so that's made with usually bottom round roast or pot roast meat, I guess, depending what part of the country you're from.
yeah. Now, this might seem crazy, but I like a little paprika on a baked potato.
Okay.
I mean, it doesn't seem like anything too crazy, I guess, but generally, if I'm going to make a baked potato, it's either going to be one of two things. It's going to be baked potato with sour cream or baked potato with butter and salt and pepper.
There
Now,
you go.
and if I do the baked potato with sour cream, I would put a little bit of paprika on that, and I would put a little bit of I don't want to say bacon bits, but chopped bacon, I guess it is.
Chopped up bacon. Yeah.
A little bit of bacon, sour cream, and paprika on a baked potato.
Oh yeah.
That's
I love a good baked potato.
me too. And by the way, I went to Outback Steakhouse for lunch today here in Vegas, and I'm looking at the soups menu, and of course they make French onion soup, which I love, so I ended up having to get that. But while I'm looking at the soups, I noticed they make a baked potato soup, and I
Interesting.
said to myself, "Ooh, mental note, that's what I'm getting next time."
So it's like potatoes, cheddar cheese, and sour cream and stuff in it.
I don't know what they put into it. All I saw on the menu was just the name of it. It just says baked potato soup, and it doesn't say what's in it. So
Interesting.
very interesting. And I thought about asking, what goes into it, but then it dawned on me that perhaps the mystery of it all would be a bit more fun. So I decided against asking what's in it. And so I think next time I swing through Outback, I'm gonna try a little blind date with a baked potato soup. I don't know what
Hey,
they
man,
put in it. I'm sure it's good though.
let your freak flag fly, my brother.
Yeah, now that's it. That's the spirit. Thank you. I appreciate the encouragement.
As
And when I
always.
and when I do get that baked potato soup, don't be surprised if I sprinkle a little bit of Hungarian paprika into it. I'm gonna make sure I bring some with me that day into
That's
the
right.
office.
So yeah, I'm bringing my own spices into your restaurant, sir.
Yeah, it's always nice to have your own spices handy. So, well, that was fun. That was cooking talk. There was a big cooking talk segment. I hope
That's
everybody
it.
enjoyed that. And we're going to be moving right along to our final segment of the episode. We call this segment Get a Grip. And it's
Get
also
a grip.
Get a Grip is our segment where we discuss ridiculously unimportant topics, ridiculously stupid topics. Well, this topic is extra stupid and extra ridiculous. So I
Yeah.
hope everybody out there is ready for this one. And our big topic,
Okay.
Get a Grip, in this episode is who should be the next James Bond now that Daniel Craig seemingly just wants to appear in murder mysteries now. Well,
Yeah.
there have been a lot of
That.
names kicked around
Yep.
about who should be the next Bond, but I want to know, Richard, who you think should
Oh,
be our next Bond.
you know,
I
you know
don't
who I
know.
should.
I need you to let us know.
Well, I think they should just end it and not make any more. I think they should just end it, dude. That's
Never,
what I.
never.
That's what I think. In my opinion, it should be done. It's. I mean, I understand all the reboots. We just talked about Connery earlier. Obviously, he is many a person's favorite James Bond. Believe it or not, he's not my favorite James Bond, though. My favorite James Bond is Roger Moore. That's my
I
favorite James.
love Roger Moore as Bond.
It's probably from my age. If I was a little
Mine
older,
too. I get it.
I may prefer Sean Connery. If I was a little younger, maybe even Timothy Dalton might be my favorite James Bond. Probably not too many people would say that. Oh, I do like his two films an awful lot, though. And I think Craig was a great James Bond. Pierce Brosnan, another great. I think all the James Bonds all brought something to the table. I
Yeah.
just don't know where they can bring him now with into the new age of you have to make movies a certain way. You can't offend anybody. Maybe they want to make it into a woman now. They want to and if it's a
Game
man,
on.
they're going to have to possibly defang him a little bit of the way he is with his womanizing ways of the old days and all this suave debonair kind of stuff. They don't want to
I'm
offend
okay with
anybody.
that if they wanna
Yeah,
describe that, whatever.
I just don't. For me personally, I mean, if you want me to pick one guy who's never getting the role that I would love to see do it, Jason Statham. That's what I'd like to see as James Bond because he
That's
can
who
kick
you'd like
ass.
to see.
Yeah, that's what
I
I'd like
would
to
love
see as
to.
James
I'd like to see him too. Come to
I'd
think of
like
it,
to see him as James Bond. If you make me choose one guy, because he's an action hero, he can kick ass, he's in great shape. They can put a wig on him if they wanted to. They can make him shave for a change. I don't have a problem with any of that. If they want to make him look a little more clean cut and good looking good in his suit and not like a Cockney bouncer. That's all cool with me. But I think he's great. I think he's got a great style. I've seen a bunch of his films, not just the Fast and the Furious, like the people, but some of his lesser known works he's done over the last 10 years. I think he's great, but I know he'd never get the gig. I don't think they feel he's right for
he's
it.
too
But
busy to get the gig. He,
yeah,
he keeps
well, if
making
well if
Expendables
if they
movies.
gave him $30 million, I bet you he would say, "Hey, you know what? I'm not as busy as I thought I was."
Oh, maybe. But then he would have to say no to Sylvester Stallone. Don't you know Expendables 4 is coming out soon? And
Nice.
we're gonna, there's gonna be more. So
Well, I
Jason's a
loved I
busy
loved
guy.
all the Expendables films. They were all great. They were
They're
fun. I
fun.
loved.
They're fun.
It's an all-star cast of action heroes, and they all get to do what they do in a group like a Dirty Dozen format, with everybody that's big from the time. So yeah,
Well, Jason
those are fun.
Statham, good choice. I loved him in Crank 1. I loved him in Crank 2. A lot of people didn't
Yes.
care much for Crank 2, but oh, I love Crank 2. I was sad when there was no Crank 3, but I understood that, hey, in life,
You can't always
you
crank,
don't always get what you want, but if you try sometimes, you just might find that you get what you need.
which happened to be the Expendables, I think, at that point.
Yeah. Anyway, I'm ready for Expendables 4. Am I
And
ready
you know what?
for
I'm ready to hear who Tim Connolly thinks would be the next James Bond.
who I think should be the next James Bond is Cillian Murphy from Peaky Blinders.
Yeah, he's great. I love him too. I love Peaky Blinders. I was one of the first people on that show when it first came out. Because I always loved that period piece stuff, and I was telling
Oh, me
everybody
too.
about it. So and he's a great actor. I've seen him in a bunch of things. He even played the Scarecrow in Batman with Christian Bale.
He sure
People
did.
don't even remember that role he did,
He did. He
but
did.
he was in that, years ago. That might have been the first thing people in the US may have seen him in at the
Yeah,
time.
maybe. Although I think 28 Days Later was probably the first time people saw him. But he's been around in a few things, and I certainly would love to see him as James Bond. He's got the look.
Yeah.
I don't know if I would consider him athletic, but he's certainly got that. He's got the physique that I think could pull it off with stunt doubles, of course. I would never expect Cillian Murphy or even Jason Statham, quite honestly, to do their own stunts. But
Within reason. Yeah, of course.
maybe if they were 10, 15 years younger, but look, not everybody's Tom Cruise.
It's
And,
true.
by the way, I have no idea how Tom Cruise still like does all of his own stunts
Yeah.
at this age. And
He's got to be close to 60 now.
yeah, and some of the stunts he does are mind blowing.
Yeah.
Um, I'm sure he's on the other side of 60 at this point.
Now,
Um,
Tim, did you hear any scuttlebutt about Cillian Murphy getting the job as James Bond? Is he in the running, or is it just somebody you threw in the hat on your own?
I haven't seen anything about that being taken seriously as a rumor or otherwise, honestly. But he's British. I think technically he's Irish. He may be he may be forbidden from being given the role because he's of Irish descent and not English descent. And I know that sounds silly,
I'm not sure about that.
but for them in that part of the world, it's a big deal. So, but I do think that he's fantastic. I mean, oh my God, I've loved him in Inception. He had a small role, but he was good.
Yep.
I've loved him in Sunshine with Chris Evans and Michelle Yeoh and everybody else. I think he's just fantastic. I have
Yeah, he's a
no
great
problem
actor.
with the guy, and his job in Peaky Blinders is just amazing.
Yeah.
It shows off the range he has as an actor. It's been
Yeah,
really,
and when you're the lead in a show like that, it's a great ensemble cast. I mean, I've loved
oh
this.
yeah,
It's incredibly good, but he does a lot of the heavy lifting in that show. I mean, he is clearly the star of the show,
he is. He
and he
is.
does a lot of the heavy lifting, and he works his ass off in that. There's no doubt about it.
This is true. And I don't know if it's true, but it also looks like he smokes 1.5 packs of cigarettes every episode.
Yeah, no, every 15 minutes, he's just like lighting one up and putting it out.
Oh yeah, just amazing. I wouldn't be surprised if he's not even a smoker in real life.
Yeah,
He just does that, for the craft. This for the
yeah.
craft.
Well, it's a period piece. Everybody smoked back in those days, especially people from the street type mentality. I'm sure back in Birmingham.
Yeah, this is true. So, well, I guess those are our choices here in the Get a Grip segment. So it's going to come down to either Jason Statham or Cillian Murphy. And that leads me to wonder what our listeners and viewers have to say about all this. Who do you think should be the next James Bond? You can send your email to us or send it to our program director, Sonny Calzone. You can send that to sonnycalzone@gmail.com. And Sonny will make sure that we get a chance to take a look at it. And if you are lucky enough with a cool enough suggestion for who should be James Bond, we will open up your letter on the show here and revisit this conversation.
Absolutely. And remember, Sonny Calzone is also my attorney, so all lawsuits go directly to him as well. Don't pester me on the street or come to my door.
That's right.
Thank
If you need to reach the attorney for Richard Woods, just remember to send your emails to sunnycalzone@hotmail.com.
hotmail.com. Yes.
But if you want to reach our Sunny Calzone, who's our program director here, you'll send your emails to sunnycalzone@gmail.com.
Correct.
And by the way, also, wouldn't it be fun? I don't think he should be James Bond, but how fun would it be if Duty from Heart Machine was the next James Bond?
Oh my God.
Am I
Duty from
right?
Yes.
Am I right? Gun in
That would
one
be
hand,
something.
Rubik's Cube in the other hand. You know what I'm
Yeah.
saying?
Yeah. A water gun in one hand and a Rubik's Cube in the other. Yeah. That sounds about right.
Yeah, that would be
Yeah.
a whole lot of fun.
Yeah.
Anyway, apologies, folks. That's just an inside joke. Unless you do know Duty from Heart Machine, in which case it's not so inside of a joke.
Huzzah to you.
Anyway, that's all. It's all good. We love Duty from Heart Machine. We're not
We
here to.
do. And we love you guys for listening and watching and hanging out with us for this hour. And on behalf of myself and the exquisite Mr. Timothy Connolly, we'll see you next time on Gorshin's 11. See you guys.
Until then.